Hey, it's gonna be all good. Just drink all of the space Kool-Aid here with us on V'ger, please. Heinous trip at Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
Am I drunk? Am I possessed? No, I'm your co-host, Peter.
That means you're probably both, Peter. Know you.
Well, some of these episodes you gotta be a little of both to get through them, right?
Oh boy, I had a few drinks before we recorded our last one on Con Aramar, and it enhanced the experience because it was right around Christmas. This was perhaps coal in our stocking, though. What did we review this week?
Speaking of Christmas, Happy New Year's to you. This is the first time that we've recorded in a while. We ate up our little reserve we had there. Did we have an anniversary? I can never remember when we actually started. It was December or January.
It was January. We're coming up on the 5th anniversary of V'ger, please.
5 years.
5 years. 2018 is when we started the show. So, yeah, we're nearly there. We're nearly there, my friend.
Snap.
And it won't be long before this is gonna. We're gonna have to start looking at doing DS9, and we're gonna keep this train going. I have no choice.
Much to my wife's chagrin. She has to take the kids upstairs and I go, "Is Daddy gonna do Podcast? Daddy Podcast." And I'm like, "Yeah, Daddy Podcast.
Daddy Podcast.
Yeah, Daddy Podcast."
Well, what episode of Star Trek did you watch instead of spending time with your adorable children this week?
Season 2, episode 18, The Crossing. That came out April 2nd, 2003. Man, right up on my graduation almost from college. We're getting into some real world years here. Teleplay by Rick Berman and Bran Braga. Story by Rick Berman, Braga, and Andre Baramis. Directed by David Livingston. We've returned to poopy form.
I was really excited to watch this until I realized it wasn't Judgment, which is next week's episode.
Don't you hate when that happens?
Yeah. The gap that we had since we last recorded, I just completely forgot this was what we had to do first. Not. I mean, it's not the worst we've watched. It's just,
Step in the wrong direction.
If Con Aramar was like the platonic ideal of the space prison break, and really like managed to nail a Trek trope is about as perfect as it can be done, from casting to structure to action. This is,
and the humor. Don't forget the humor.
The humor, just enough where it's like you're having a good time, but not so much that it takes away from some of the dramatic things you want to do. This is just like C- material. This is what I like, just not quite average. It's eh.
Whereas you were excited because you knew what Judgment was, I was sad when I sat down to watch this and I read the little capsule and I was like, ugh, a possession episode. Real hard. I mean, off the top of your head, what's the best possession episode you can think of?
DS9 has a lot of story built around the Bajoran religious faith and the aliens that are involved with it, that are seen as gods by the Bajorans. And there's a possession episode of that show that's very well done. That's about it. That's the only time I think I liked it.
I like the possession episode in Next Generation. I think it's Data, Troy, and Picard, and they're like convict spirits, and they're very mean-spirited, and I don't know, Data fucks up Worf and, is very quick to flex that android, which is ridiculous also that a fucking android got possessed by some sort of astral entity.
Just did not make sense.
Well, it's right there in the same spirit as this goddamn thing.
Yeah, they fire it off right away, right? Like, we just join the story just as it starts.
It's been a while since we've had any sort of a cold open where there's stakes or any real pressing business going on.
No. Con Aramar, they're like, they're in the space prison already. Like, there's been opens where like the story has already started, but this is a giant ship that's moving at warp 6, but
not just giant, fucking massive. That's half my notes is on this ship alone, right? So like you said, this ship, it's closing in, it's doing warp 6, which, for these guys, it's a big fucking deal. They say that ship is
500 meters.
500 meters wide. Do you want to guess how big the Enterprise D's saucer section was?
180.
457 meters wide. The entire Galaxy class is 641 meters long. So way back in ye old Archer days, you've got some alien vessel that is effectively bigger than the Enterprise D. So already you got like this wild sense of scale. And I'm like, all right, interesting. Like, and I guess that's kind of the cool thing too, is when you set the timeline this far back, it's a great time to tell stories about empires that are sunsetting before the dawn of the Federation, and there could really be some wild twilight out there, right?
Yeah, some leftover tech from fallen empires or remnants of prior civilizations that there isn't really anyone big enough to like stamp it out or do anything to it. So they're just kind of out there existing, sort of like the Hirogen are
Right, the
in
Hirogen.
the Delta Quadrant.
Or, what you just said there always makes me think of Final Unity, that CD-ROM game for DOS. That was the next gen.
Yeah, this
Was that
reminds me of a CD-ROM game for DOS in a number of different ways. We'll get to that.
So here's this massive ship that's basically coming up like what are the giant whales that eat all the plankton and shrimp?
Oh, beluga whales, blue whales, blue whales.
Coming in, these dock doors open up in the front. Reads like, what the hell is that? They don't know how the propulsion system's working. They can't read any life forms. This thing's a total ghost ship. It overtakes Enterprise at warp, closes the doors, and now they're trapped. Begin credits. Instantly, I'm thinking in my mind, if this is the story we're going to tell, and this is going to be basically humanity or Starfleet's first encounter with a possession situation, like, you're playing with fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now every single possession story that happens chronologically from here forward is just going to look fucking dumb. Because especially in like TNG, like, oh my God, how could this happen? How could otherworldly entities be possessing our human forms? Like, if
Literally the first time out, you motherfuckers encountered this.
Archer barely a year out into space has done it, like, this should be this should make like possession scenarios as well known and commonplace to Starfleet as like icebergs to the US Navy.
There is a interesting continuity that gets built of like Archer's initial exploration journeys end up being required reading for first year Starfleet cadets. Be like, here are all the space hazards. We encountered them literally the first time we decided to venture into the stars in a serious way. You got space pirates, you got space possession, you've got
madness,
you've got space madness, like
space radiation.
Here's all of the space horror food groups that you can look forward to feast upon, or it will feast upon you, your entrails, perhaps your children.
Instead of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Starfleet version's a petulant bitch's guide to the galaxy.
And it's just Jonathan Archer giving a big thumbs up on the cover.
A crybaby man-child's guide to the galaxy.
The dust jacket has some choice quotes from like Admiral Forrest of "He never called for directions."
No, I had no idea we had an actual guide to the future with the cure for cancer and everything else in it.
There's
the keys to warp 6 and beyond.
There's another one from Hoshi. I broke up with him.
I broke up with him for a reason.
For a reason.
So they get overtaken. They're stuck in this thing, and I dismiss a lot of my prejudice towards the episode, and I go, okay, maybe we're gonna get some cool real fringe sci-fi here, right? You've got a ship that's larger than life. It sucked it into this huge, we'll get a look around the inside of this ship, which is at a docking bay. Is it a shipyard? Who knows? It's just this massive cavern, and they start moving the cameras around, and they can see some dancing Christmas lights off in the corner. Communications don't work, weapons don't work, propulsion doesn't work. So Archer gets it's him, Trip, and Reed down into shuttlecraft, which all that stuff does work in there.
It's they can kind of explore the space. So you already mentioned, in a way, the way I was going to try and describe the episode, or at least what it reminded me of. And that was, you mentioned the Final Unity, which was one of the adventure Trek games. So Trek video games have had a kind of rough history in terms of their critical reception, I suppose. And gameplay wise, I think people expect something a little bit more action adventure. And particularly in the early days, it was very point and click adventure, which I
Yeah.
liked. I liked the TOS ones, the 25th anniversary game in particular, and I actually liked the TNG ones as well. And this entire episode, right down to the goofy FMV level special effect sequences, felt like a micropose point and click adventure game. The plot, the premise, like the different events that occur during the episode, it felt like I was watching someone do a let's play of a enterprise point and click adventure game.
With a big caveat being that this is a very advanced game where there's multiple endings, including a bad ending, which
Well, they actually all had bad endings too, because you could screw it up and there could be game over. And depending on how you game over, it would have a bad ending. So that actually works in the exact premise we're talking about.
yeah,
I
spoiler.
know you were probably not enough of a nerd to play those, but good for you, because you knew what women were like at a much
Like I said, I
earlier
mean, I
time in
played
your
through
life.
Final Unity, but it's been a long time since I've gone down that road. So they get in the shuttle pod, they fly down, they land on the floor of the inside of this massive hangar on what appears to be a clear dome with more wisps, as they're going to be called in here. Basically, these spiritual, ghostly apparitions. My kids, speaking of which, the oldest came down and watched a majority of this episode and was very interested in the idea of basically demonic possessions.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there like trying to explain like what happens to your body when a space ghost. That's what these are space ghosts. I'm sorry.
Space
Wisps and
ghosts.
nothing. When the space ghosts hit you in the face and take you out. So that was a whole other layer of viewing for me on this. We get treated to some real bottom of the barrel CGI humans
Oh,
trying to walk in spacesuits.
some of the worst I've ever seen.
The
This
human body walking in 4 separate parts, stacked vertically.
I don't know what it is with the effects of this show, that it's either really good or just absolutely like PS1 cutscene level. But this was more PS1 cutscene level. Just
What comes down to, are they showing ships and inanimate constructs, or are they trying to show something vaguely organic looking? Because they got their starships down to T,
yeah, and then
but
maybe that's it. Like their models are really good when they do, and they know how to animate it, and they know how to light it. They're like, because that's what they like, that's what they want to do. It makes sense when you put it that way, because like the artists who are doing this stuff, they want to do like starship things. That's what
yeah.
they signed up to do. And it's like, do the interior of this weird space whale, and they're like, I don't fucking know. Like, boo. I want to do the cool Klingon battle cruiser, like I don't want
I
to
want
do
to do
this.
Wolf 359.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with our new digital effects, we can actually do it. Oh no, do the inside of the space whale.
Do
All right.
fluidic space, but blue. They're down, they're walking around, and a couple of these space ghosts come floating down, and everybody pulls out their phase pistols, because that's what you do when you're out exploring and
Are you
encountering
the
strange
president?
new worlds.
I have something for you.
Are you the president of the space ghosts? I come in peace with my gun out. And then the space ghost charges right at Trip's face, and instead of shooting it, everybody just waits for it to hit him in the face. And the blue space ghost goes in, and an orange space ghost comes out, and we get to meet cult indoctrinated Trip.
So it only lasts very briefly there, I believe. Like he's, like just kind of like looks like he's just unresponsive, and then it switches back. It's not until later that we get the cult indoctrinated one. But if you're Malcolm Reed and you're Jonathan Archer and you got your guns out, like what were you expecting the spirit to do something aggressive? Were you like expecting him to put up like little spirit hands? Like Queensberry rules, let's tussle. Like, yes, it flying at one of you is the aggressive act. If you're so concerned that you have the gun out, you should shoot it then. I don't know, would have done anything, probably wouldn't have done anything, probably was correct not to shoot, but like then why did you get your gun out, you dumb fuck?
They were waiting for it to pull out a little ghost knife and say,
Yeah,
"Give me your wallet."
like, step back. You've come to the wrong territory. Like, yes, this
You're
is
on the
it.
wrong side of the warp core.
This is the spirit. But yeah, the first time it just like comes in and comes out, and then Trip's like, "Oh, Captain, I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the pool. It was great. It was like I was there." And then when they go back inside, Phlox examines him. Trip is fine, but like Archer's like, "I don't like where this is going. That seemed to be weird. It seemed to be very weird. We should probably get out of here."
So the out of body experience has two parts, as Trip puts it. There's part one, which is he leaves his body and he's looking down at the group. He can see them, but it's not with his eyes, and it's very, near death experiency, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets to go into like the top shelf, live your fantasy portion, where it can be going back and revisiting old memories that you cherish, or the deluxe treatment where you're riding along with Hopalong Cassidy or whatever, and flying an X-wing with Luke Skywalker and just living it up. Most of Trip's experiences focus on his life back in Florida. You can take the Florida man out of Florida, but you can't take Florida out of the
Every
Florida
first
man.
time you get that space possession and that offer for a little bit of that Hellraiser style, fantasy realm, he's right back there eating ribs.
I don't like Archer in this episode. I fundamentally don't like this episode, period. I feel like I'm curious, going back to the production notes on this, if Andre Baramis had very different intentions, and then Rick Berman and Braga came in and goofed it up.
Could be. There are two things I liked about it. One very small, one very large. The large thing was I really liked T'Pol. As much as I also agree with how much I disliked Archer, I really liked T'Pol. T'Pol's felt so much more like lived in and was responding to things in a way that reflects everything that she's been through up to this point. She felt different in this episode, particularly in the way she appealed to Archer. Just fucking listen to me, bro.
The difference that you're feeling is her displaying some degree of agency for a change, and
agency and almost like something akin to emotion. Like not quite emotion because she's Vulcan, but something that comes up right up against it. Very restrained.
Let's call it investment and concern, whereas a lot of the other dilemmas they encounter, she is very distant and aloof.
This comes hot on the heels of her being eating the entire bowl of Boss Bitch Flakes and sorting out all the space fashions off camera. Like, she's definitely been a more interesting. She's been a better, officer and a more interesting character, but also I think it has reflected some of the story things that have happened over the first couple seasons in a way that's finally starting to pay off a little bit. I really liked that. The other thing I really liked, and it was a very small thing, was in the next scene where after like Archer and T'Pol kind of like quickly catch up, like this is a bad situation. You got Trip working hard on the warp core, and like his subordinate comes down, and then suddenly the spirit moves back into him, and he's like straightens his back and goes, "I am fine. I am going to go now. Goodbye, sir," to his subordinate, and then
Well, you
just
know
like
who that was, right?
I don't know who the guy's Rostov, but I don't remember the actor's name.
Rostov's Leaf Brain.
Oh, that's Leaf Brain.
Yeah, we haven't seen him since Space Reefer Madness.
I don't. No, it is
Yes,
not. He is
it is.
not Leaf Brain. He was in Vox Sola 2 days and 2 nights in this episode. He was not in Strange New World.
Mm,
It's a different guy. Different guy. That is not Leaf Brain. But the guy that he was speaking to, Rostov, was like, "Yeah, that's not okay," and like immediately calls Archer and be like, "Hey, boss, listen, this is what just happened. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure Trip's being possessed by an evil alien. You should get him." Like, no hesitation, no wondering, no like, "Oh, he's this, he's my boss. He's allowed to do what he wants." It's like, nope. Nope, not accepting this for 1 second. I have seen enough that I'm calling it in.
yeah, that's a man who's hungry for a field promotion and knows the only way for him to go up is for Trip to go somewhere else.
Or at a minimum has self-preservation instinct. They've been on this boat long enough and they've seen enough wild shit where he's like, that was out of the ordinary, immediately contact my supervisor.
He's like, listen, I've tried to get this guy kidnapped at least 6 times, and I have background string pulled him being stranded or caught up in love interest, just anything to get this guy out of the command section I want to occupy. Thank God he's finally possessed and I can like try and get him declared unfit for duty. This is the only guy with any fucking common sense on the ship in terms of being able to diagnose, hey, I know that presumably, I'm guessing that, there's some degree of dissemination of information to the rest of the crew that like there's these incorporeal space ghosts that might be able to possess you, and he's able to put 2 and 2 together and say, this person seems fishy right now, and I'm going to Occam's razor that he's probably possessed, and that is a skill that nobody else will be able to demonstrate. The most infuriating example is going to be Reed and T'Pol down the road. But my gripe about Archer and all of this is that there is no spirit of exploration present whatsoever, and his face gets rubbed in it
Yeah.
during the second possession encounter. But it's like, this is the shit you're supposed to be out here to see, right? Stuff that humanity and even the Vulcans have never encountered. None of this is in the Vulcan database. This is all brand new, and wishy-washy. I lean in whatever direction the plot needs me to change a heart. Archer is so narrow-minded and conservative in this that it's really distracting.
He never entertains for a moment what's going on except through extreme skepticism, right? Like, that's the real problem. It's not that he doesn't suss it out or figure it out. It's that he never shows curiosity for what's going on. Just like, this is bad and we need to get away from this situation as quickly as possible. And really, he never tries to negotiate. He doesn't try to find. I mean, his solution is horrific.
Yes.
Like, extremely horrific. And it just seems like there was a beat missing where he's like, I don't want to, we need to find a way to like communicate. We establish first contact. This really like new kind of alien life. This could be very important. And then whatever attempt he makes to do that fails. And then that leads him to more extreme measures. Like that's okay. Getting to the extreme measures is fine, but you need to like provide some reason for why it's acceptable, and instead it's just, nah, fuck them right from the start.
I like that he does become aware of potential prejudice in his feelings towards these, because he's given that captain's log and he says so much as like, uh I'm wondering if I'm having a hard time with this just because they're so different. I hope that's not the case, but so I guess through that lens, like, sure, we know he's got beef with the Vulcans and that, he's got his own prejudices. And if this is just a facet of that, I guess it would kind of
He's
require.
literally interrupted in that reflection by Phlox, like coming in and like saying, "Yeah, these guys are confirmed for bad. They tried to take me over. They couldn't because I'm Denoblian, and that means I'm special. But yeah, fuck them. They just cut off Archer mid thought of like, I hope I'm not wrong so that the script can reinform Archer that he's totally right and he can just go to the furthest extreme from this point forward.
So, Rostov, as you mentioned, witnesses Trip being possessed a second time, which confirms that the space ghosts can penetrate the hull at their leisure. And Archer and DePaul go off, I believe, along with Reed, and they track down Trip in the mess hall where he has all of the foods. You would think that the EMH is hiding in there somewhere, wanting to experience everything for the first time. And that's a very familiar sight, right? I'm new to your body. I'm new to your life. I want to enjoy the pleasures. And that always comes down to, like, chocolate cake and pecan pie and a T-bone steak, right? So he's eating all this stuff, and it gives Archer the first chance to really communicate with these guys and try to figure out what they're about. And that's really where all the complaints about Archer come out. He doesn't even ask what his name is. What are you? Tell me about
Yeah.
your people. It's give me my friend back and get the hell off my ship and let us go right now. And
You can see Janeway being like, if Janeway was in this position, to be like, okay, so what do you guys need? What's going on here? Tell me your story. Is my officer unharmed? Will he be returned? Like interrogating politely. What's going, just to gather information, right? And instead, Archer's just pissed that his friend is taken over and just forces the issue as quickly as possible because
which is
he's
amazing because the last time his friend was directly in harm's way, which was back in Dawn, when he was in Mortal Kombat with Reptile, Archer was perfectly happy to play nice with the mean spirited lizard people who gunned him down sight unseen. So again, more wishy washy Archer here. So he stomps his boots and makes his demands. And at this point, the interactions with the space ghosts are pretty pleasant. Just saying, we're like you, we're explorers. This is all very new to us. We're able to give you new experiences in exchange as we learn about you. It's a pretty good elevator pitch. It's kind of silly and self-contradicting, though. It's like, you're over here saying that you guys have at least the capability of warp 6, but we're the first corporeal beings that you've ever encountered. I would have appreciated if someone in the cast would have drawn attention to that this is a cockamamie proposal that this thing's
yeah, and
making.
that could have led to the why are extreme measures necessary to get out of the situation, right? Like you build in these layers so that eventually the crew members, maybe someone like T'Pol, can start to like piece it together to say, no, it is very unlikely, given the size of this vessel and its speed and the amount of distance that it's traveled, that it somehow never encountered corporeal beings within this part of space. Like they
Yeah,
would
we
have.
can't go 15 minutes without running into some space dickhead
Yeah, like
wiping mud all over our carpet and trying to steal our stuff.
it's, you think you would have missed that planet with all of the nice people with the Mr. Rogers sweaters? I don't think you would have.
So Archer makes his demands. Trip comes back into his body. The doors open up, and it's kind of a show of goodwill. And Enterprise is able to use its thrusters to leave this massive space whale. And we can see from the exterior shots that the warp nacelles are still dark, indicating that they don't have the ability just yet to get the fuck out of there. But that is Archer's intention, which again is silly because we know this thing can move at warp 6, so you can't outrun them. It would seem like maybe we should figure out a way to diplomacy our way through this, but Archer's hellbent on just getting the ship back up, ready to go, and getting out of there as quick as possible. As they're releasing the ship, like, part of me is like, I would like the episode just to be over now. I think if they just call it here and it's like, wow, that was a weird experience, it was different, and I don't think I really liked it. Like, I think that would have been a better story than had they continued deeper in. And it keeps coming back to me, like, what I want to see out of these Star Trek episodes as a 40-year-old, not at all being what I think the network and the production people wanted these episodes to be. And if it was you and I writing scripts, the amount of slice of life episodes and just, wow, that was weird, I got to make up my mind on that. Like, would that have flown to the average Star Trek viewer back in 2003?
I think that you and I probably like that more than the average viewer or the would-be viewer or the demo they're trying to capture. But I don't. I think that there was more room for it than they permitted themselves because of their extreme desire to try and capture as much market share as possible. So they purposefully steered away from things that were a little too continuous, a little too inside baseball, a little too like not action oriented.
And that's what I'm getting to, is that, they want to tell action adventure stories instead of sci-fi.
Yeah, they don't want to tell Lower Decks. Not like the series, but the episode.
Well, I would say even the series as well. Like, that's one of the charming things about the Lower Decks cartoon I like, is that there's a lot of low stakes stuff that goes on in there,
Yeah, I mean that's the
and
whole
I
reason why
enjoy it.
they positioned it the way they did.
So, had I been able to rewrite this episode and not immediately end it here as well, that was weird. It was like, this is a first contact that went well, and leaves us with a good taste in our mouth as we do explore what this race has to offer. And finally we meet aliens that are radically different from us, but not trying to wrap us in spider webbing and suck our guts out, which is basically the two-dimensional villains they're going to try and turn these guys into by the end. So they're making their repairs,
The
and
the next victim of the possession train is Reed, who tries to flee from the spirits but fails, and then suddenly Reed decides to make very possessed Reed makes very awkward
well, hold
passes
on.
on an extra in the turbo lift.
Before that, whatever hesitation Reed had while in the company of the captain in terms of shooting this gun, once he's alone and left his own devices, one of these things floats into the armory or whatever, he has no compunction whatsoever about just going weapons hot.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know if
peels one right off.
there was like a quick side meeting between Reed and the captain, where the captain's like, well, listen, if any more of these come in, we need to defend ourselves. And the Rubian, like, to make it clear, I do have permission to shoot my death ray at the new alien of this week. Yes, Reed, you can shoot away.
He does to no avail. He is possessed. He makes a pass at an extra in the turbo lift, fails, and so decides to go visit Sub Commander Boobies herself while she is in one of her many far too revealing night outfits in her quarters. And of course, T'Pol very quickly is like calls for Archer to show up with the security team because this is very sus. Reed is not acting himself.
Well,
And
before that, though, and this is my complaint, is like, arguably the smartest person on the crew, who knows damn well that there's possessions taking place, Reed shows up out of the blue to talking to her in a way that she has never once observed before. And her first assumption is, are you drunk? What? What? Are you doing drugs? Is that what you're
Well,
doing?
that's the
Are you
hidden
sitting there
subplot.
smoking crack?
We didn't know that Reed is addicted to crack. The characters know that Reed's addicted to crack because they catch him smoking crack all the time
No,
in the cargo bay.
Is T'Pol smoking crack? That her first assumption is that Rita's drunk when you know these fucking space
No.
ghosts are possessing people.
That's what I'm saying, is that T'Pol just knows that Reed drinks all the time.
Listen,
And that's
this
why she
isn't
said it.
what the hell was his name? The guy who got killed right at the end that B'Elanna punched in the face, who was smoking pot behind the cargo bay pods.
Oh, Joe Carey?
Carey.
Joe Carey
Yeah.
was the one smoking weed
Yeah.
in the cargo bay.
Yeah, that's Reed. That's
And then
Reed's
they-
shtick
and
in
then-
Enterprise now, is he's the secret drug addict guy.
Well, and it was who did we say found his stash? It had to be Neelix who found Joe Carey's stash after he died, right?
No, it was the Borg boy.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was Icheb.
Icheb, yeah.
Found his stash. That's how he turned into a man. So he found Joe Carey's old Alpha Quadrant Kush and helped himself.
I like the heavy emphasis on gender and the differences in gender and the space ghosts' fascination
Oh yeah,
with this human concept. Very
neat idea. Yeah,
very before the times. I hadn't really looked at things from the cult angle that you've been joking about until you started making the jokes, but now it's there. And it's another thing I don't like about the episode. And if we go back to what was the Vulcan Cenobite episode?
Oh, Meld?
Meld.
Not Meld. Meld was the Voyager episode. I keep saying it's Meld. But yeah, we know what one we're talking about, when the Vulcans who are in touch with their emotions show up.
Yeah, and it's like, here's a group of people who could be something different and interesting, but they are going to be the secret bad guys, and the key to really reinforce or opening the door and showing you their nefariousness comes down to this rapey vibe.
Yeah, like the second possession is a weird rapey one. It's like, really couldn't just like uncork that late, huh? You had to like just immediately make sure that both the characters and the audience know that these are the bad guys. Got it. No dramatic tension on this whatsoever. Right after you built it up with Reed, or with Trip rather, right? Like, we're explorers. I just wanted to try this out. Thanks. I'm out of here. And then you could have like built this idea of the rapport being built, and then you could have had the sinister third act reveal. Instead, you're like, nah, fuck it. Reveal it now. Like, okay.
But Berman era Trek, I'm noticing that's always the vehicle that we unveil, that we unfurl the black wing of evil. It's not like they're cannibals or thieves or some other delinquent behavior. It's always the rape vibe every single time.
Every time.
And you go back, it's rife through all of Voyager, the Blue Ball episode. It's always getting too close, using my mental powers. And that's also the tie-in there too, is like, I have some sort of ability to telepathically bridge our minds, and I'm going to flash my potential rapist card at you. And you go, oh, okay, cool. You're from that department. I understand. You're evil. Thank you. Beyond all questions, you're evil. I'm tired of seeing it. It's lame, and I think that they could do a lot better than that.
So the next big plot beat here is T'Pol and Phlox have to work to find some method of detecting infested people, because there's a lot more reports going on the ship of people acting fucking weird. And fortunately, it does not apparently take them much time to see that there's some biological marker that is very clearly elevated in the people who are possessed. so they can have a medical tricorder that can read, is the imposter, is not the imposter, automatically, and are starting to figure out who is still reliable and who is not. While this is going on, Trip asks Travis to go to the Warp Nacelle catwalk. A nice little callback, because what happens is one of the spirits tries to get him. He runs up there, slams door behind him, and actually stops the spirit from interdicting him. When he finds out that whatever that special sauce alloy that prevented all of the space radiation a few weeks ago, and why the entire crew was locked up in the nacelle for weeks, apparently works on these guys too. And not only that, but that little command center that they built there, they kept there. It's still there. And
along
so
with all the beds. So that special material that's in the walls of the catwalk that deflects the space ghosts, it's US dollars. And what has happened here is that they have spent a lot of money on the catwalk set,
and
and
they're
by
using
God,
that
they
thing.
got to make it worth it.
Like,
So
we build this
these,
thing, you're going to use it at least 3 times this season.
yes, space ghosts are fiercely allergic to capitalism and balance books. So they wave this expensive new set piece at it, and the ghosts are like, no, no, no. We can't have any of that.
I mean, I liked the idea of there having
I
some
loved it.
continuity for the fact that they have accidentally hit on the idea of like a battle bridge in the most
Absolutely.
roundabout way possible, of like it's installed in the fucking nacelle because that happens to be this weird spot where there's this extra shielding against these weird hazards they keep running into.
Yeah. At this point after this episode, I think that there should actually be like chairs installed to the floor there
Yeah,
as
just
they
like
realize, like,
bar stools,
you
minimal
know,
chairs, do
we were just
something.
being lazy before by not clearing that old command center out, but like maybe that porta potty needs to be like permanent plumbing, and we need to upgrade the captain's seat off a bucket with a net over it.
I do appreciate that it was still a bucket with a net over it. Like, it was right there. The bucket had not moved.
So they keep playing on this, like, oh, we want to, experience everything that corporeal humanity has to offer. Part of this, too, is that a statement's made by the Trip Space Ghost that we used to be like you and that we have evolved beyond it, which for a second there was kind of like a cool, like, maybe this is the precursor to Q, you know?
Maybe there's something here, yeah.
By being in you, we can learn about our own past, blah, 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 gender, this and that. And I'm like, your fatal flaw in all this is that you're going after the male crew members. Had you just inhabited the girl crew members and been this forward, I think you would have had a much easier time accomplishing your agenda here. And right about that time, there's going to be a new possession that happens, and it's going to be old Hoshi.
Yes, Hoshi is one of again with the sinister possession. She's like the most cult-like of like, you'll understand. All of you will join us soon. One of us.
I want to
One of
say,
us.
I think that possessed Hoshi is the most interesting Hoshi and engaging Hoshi, and the best Hoshi that we have seen on screen so far. I think Linda Park shows here that she makes a much better vaguely bad guy than she does whatever the boring oatmeal character they gave her, and I was sad to see her not be able to continue with this character
You have no idea
past
how
this.
correct you are. Like, there's gonna be a moment where this statement you made will flower in a very particular way, and you will be fully vindicated in your opinion. But yeah, like going back to the episodes where Hoshi has been a major part of the proceedings, she's been the most interesting when she's been sort of like catty and, and dismissive and sort of not really serious about her job, so she's like can be kind of shitty but in a fun way. And this is just okay. Well, this is all of her regard for people turned off, right? What does that version of Hoshi look like? Ooh, okay, that's interesting.
I like it. Archer sees that she's been turned. He calls for the security goons, who, by the way, those actors are the two security guys that have just been able to pop out of the door looking stern at least 12 times this episode.
They're working it, man. They're up and down and all
That was
around.
a good paycheck for these two actors. So they plan at this point is that Archer is going to try to, well, the security goons are forcing everybody to remain in quarters who has been possessed, while they are evacuating the non-possessed crew members to the catwalk hazard area. Silly concept here because they see what's happening. They're not just being bum rushed by fucking space ghosts who should have been able to have like completely taken the crew over within like 20 seconds.
Instantaneously, right? There's no explanation for why they didn't.
Plot holes abound in this stupid thing.
Yeah, like they can just go through the ship at any time, just possess people until they happen to go into the nacelle and are just obviously watching them the entire time. So why'd they let them do that?
When there's thousands of these things on the vessel too, like they're approaching their plan like a bunch of ninjas circling Jet Li and just fighting them one at a time and giving them every opportunity to come out of this. Not since the fucking Sad Sacks have I seen an alien race assault a Starfleet vessel this slowly.
After they've secured everyone in the catwalk, T'Pol comes up with a plan of like, we need to figure out what these guys are about. And because I have like super Vulcan mental discipline powers, I'm going to go ahead and head down there and let one of them possess me. And then I'm going to kick them out. And then I'll run that intel back up here. And Archer's like, that sounds super dangerous. You probably shouldn't. And that's when you get a good T'Pol moment of like, you need to just trust me. All right. Like, unless you got a better plan. No? All right. I think you should trust me. Because what else the fuck else are we going to do? And sure enough, he goes for it. Meanwhile, Phlox is the only one who is down in the normal part of the ship because he can't be possessed. And gets called into Hoshi's quarters because she claims he broke her leg. And then
love this.
We get this vicious cat fight where Hoshi tries to whoop him and take his gun to like free the hostages, and he's got to desperately grab a hypo spray and jab her in the ankle to render her unconscious.
Let's play this out because this is good. This is my favorite part of the episode, bar none. She calls Phlox and says, Hoshi Sato needs your help. There's been an accident. Her leg is fractured, and she is in a great deal of pain right now, which is a neat way of reporting, like, sorry, I broke your friend.
Right.
And he goes down there, and he's got like a phaser in one hand and his little medical kit. And he's like, all right, get away from the door. I'm armed. No nonsense. And he goes in there, and she's just laying on the floor, very flat-faced. Which, you know, is par for the course is from what we've seen. Also, there's been an interesting development here where apparently the space ghosts are able to access like memories of these people, so they know how to use the technology and like know what a fractured leg is and stuff like this. And then Phlox is like, okay, well, I'm going to scan you. And he scans her. And then he goes, you're lying. And then she snaps to life and fucking like
tries to choke him, like goes
spears him in the abs into the corner. And it's like, why not just zap her ass? Let's just be like, the tricorder says everything's fine. Next thing, pull the trigger and stun her.
Yeah.
So
clearly, she's up to no good. Just stun her.
He opens the door. She snaps up, slams him into the wall. They start fighting. She's like, I need to know where the rest of the crew is. Which, you know, would leave you to believe that they can't perceive anything that's going on in the catwalk. And this is where my favorite part of the scene happens, where she goes back down to the ground. Phlox is still up. The camera zooms in as she begins to bicycle kick him in the dick. Like fucking Liu Kang just Left, right, left, right, left, right.
It's
Flock stumbles back. Dick a kicked. Grabs the hypo spray as she's lunging up again and drugs her as she goes down. And I had to go back and rewind it. And my wife's like, did she just kick him in the dick like 6 times? And yeah, so that's my, I don't know, that might be my favorite part of this entire season, honestly.
I liked that, like, the next shot is Phlox, like, oh god, just like limping through the hallway, like, fuck. And then you've got like Archer, like, how's it going, Doc? He's like, oh, it's fine. It's all good.
I don't know. Hoshi does a
Everything's
lot of
fine
squats
here.
or
How are
something.
you?
Hoshi's thighs are way too strong, and that was
Hoshi's spitting and doing the fucking leg press in the gym a little too much. We gotta cut her off.
she got like full extension, man. She kicked me so hard I shit my robes.
It's not okay. Bitch is for real. We can't no more with this.
It's kind of a cool moment too, because he has this immunity to the Space Ghost possession. It's a nice throwback.
It's fucking ass whooped by an Asian lady, that's for sure.
Yeah, don't
missed out on that immunity.
Him acting as this free agent in the infected levels of the ship. It's a nice throwback to Voyager, how the EMH would always be the man still active, while the human crew is cowering in fear somewhere. So they're going to come up with this plan, and the plan is,
well,
T'Pol
gets possessed. Her plan works. She gets possessed. She kicks him out. Phlox is there. She comes out kind of panicked, of like, we don't have time. I need to get back to Archer. We got fucking problems. And goes up and goes like, yeah, so there's like thousands of them on the ship. Their ship doesn't work anymore. They don't know how to fix it. So they're just, while it still works, they're trying to find enough corporeal beings for them to possess so that they can, not die from their ship no longer working. And that's when they get to the plan, which is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to solve this problem? And their solution,
Joe, I'm going to ask you.
It's fucking bizarre.
Let's throw this episode aside.
All right.
I'm going to cut you.
Okay.
Joe, you're a Starfleet captain.
Got it.
An ancient race of strange aliens has encountered you.
Uh-huh.
Their ship is badly damaged. It's falling apart. They're going to die if they don't get help.
Got it.
How do you fix the situation? What do you do?
Well, if I'm Captain Joe, okay. All right. I would turn to T'Pol, because I'm Captain Joe here. I'm still the NX-01's captain.
Yeah.
I've got all those people. I'm like, well, T'Pol, you just proven a definite ability to have one of them in you and then kick them out. So you're our best bet as a communications envoy. Now that we understand their motive, they've got a problem with their ship, and that's why they're doing this. And there's thousands of them. So even if they took us all over, it's not going to be sufficient for their needs. Right? We're just a piece of the puzzle. I'm going to send you back down there with a proposal to say, we understand your issue. How about we try and help you fix your fucking ship? So that way all of you can continue to exist, and you will stop trying to possess members of my crew, and we're going to go out there and we're going to see what we can do with our corporeal bodies to fix your ship. See if we can understand the technology, see if we can do something to repair it.
Wow, Joe, that sounds like a great...
Yeah.
You must have graduated from diplomacy college.
Because I obviously did. Yeah.
Not only are you going to maybe make a new friend, maybe discourage this massive ship that's bigger than a Galaxy class from like hijacking other people, maybe let you get your hands on some super advanced, cool technology you could bring back to Earth. There's a lot of pros there. What Jonathan Archer says is, we need to get out of here, kill the entire possessed crew. Maybe we can resuscitate him back to life, and then we're going to try to fly away from the ship that can go 2 degrees of warp faster than us. And if worse comes to worse, well, I've got something for that too.
His literal plan is, what if We close the garage door and turn the car on and wait for nature to take its course. And then, like, reverse it. And then maybe everyone will be okay. Listen, they literally picked carbon dioxide poisoning. I am no medical scientist, professional, doctor of any kind, but I know enough to know that this is something you don't fuck around with in the real world. Like, oh yeah, just give them a touch of the carbon dioxide poisoning and let them asphyxiate. We just run by and help them out. It'll be fine. They'll be fine. There'll be no damage whatsoever. Bitch, are you for real? No. No, that's not how that works. You're gonna give them all brain damage, John. What the fuck are you doing?
The amount of information that DePaul is able to extract from the 40 seconds she is touched by this thing is ridiculous. Not only does she know their plan, she also knows all of their weaknesses. Like, she got like a full scan on these guys. And then, yeah, exactly what you said. So, like, I'll buy that maybe in the 24th century, the EMH does have access to Federation necromancy. But when it's Phlox curing things with space leeches that get lost in the wound and you have to pee them out later. Um, So, part of me wanted to name this episode "Who Needs the Transporter When You Have Poison Gas?" If your goal is to ultimately just kill everybody in your crew and take their soul. This is a ridiculous concept, and also too the wild gamble that, all right, we know that these are like Anne Rice vampires. They can't drink the blood of the dead, otherwise, it'll kill them. We kill all of our friends with brain damage. The things fly off. What's your guarantee that the friendly space ghost memories of your friends aren't like in Space Ghost jail or somehow inaccessible, that they're just going to magically suck back in from wherever they're at and you're going to get all of your friends put back together again?
You said it before. Plot holes abound. Everything about this plan is stupid. None of it actually solves for any of the potential complications, and it probably gets everyone killed. Like, this just checks all the boxes if all of the boxes are AIDS. Like, this is just not good.
So, Phlox goes off on a mission to flood everything with CO2. He has to get baby walked through how to kill the crew and jam up the exhaust system. Meanwhile, while this is going on, Trip's lurking in the back. We've already had scenes between Archer and Mayweather. Hey, where's Trip at? Oh, we don't know. He's off acting strange. It's so weird that, we don't know where he's at. Again, no fucking second thought to, oh God, you don't think he's possessed, do you? Like, these guys never played D&D. They've never encountered a doppelganger. Like,
well, in defense, it is Mayweather who's looking for him. And like, Mayweather is, he spent all that time next to that warp core. His critical thinking skills aren't great.
Everybody should be like, someone is hard. There's just red flag. It's an unforgivable plot hole. Rostov was instantly able to diagnose that, hey, this guy's acting a millimeter off kilter. I'm going to call it in the captain. And over again, the rest of the bridge crew, is confronted with these situations. No one stops to think twice about it. So he's in the back listening to what's going on. Space Ghost Trip knows, all right, they're going to thwart our plans. We need to get out of here. I got to get out there and I'm going to stop this guy. Presumably the Space Ghosts cannot communicate with the rest of the Space Ghosts, which I would think once you're out of the catwalk, he could have just depossessed the body, flown off, and told his friends, and they could have like sworn any number of things could have happened differently than it did. Phlox is in the fucking EV suit trying
Phlox
to
is very slowly doing an adventure game puzzle.
Yeah.
It's like what he's doing is like, take off the panel. Which of these things do I pick? It's so boring too. Like, it's I guess they tried to play it for comedy, that he doesn't, like, he's going to be talked through everything.
Now,
And like, he
for all
doesn't
the
really.
memories that they're able to steal off their human hosts. Luckily, Trip is able to suppress whatever memory he has of the advanced tactical maneuver of hitting a motherfucker with a pipe and or space wrench.
That was right after he like laid out Mayweather with probably the best space punch I've ever seen. When he's
That
like
was
running
good.
away, he like
That was
opens
worthy
the
of just Chakotay.
yeah, what that,
Punch of approval.
it was a full rotation hook to the face, just like Mayweather goes down like a sack of bricks. And he's the heavy dude, like
Yeah.
bam, and I'm out of here. And of course, Mayweather, he's not taken aback too hard by it. He's back up very quickly. But still,
Well,
best
this is
space
also
punch
hot
we've
on the
seen in some
heels.
time.
This is also hot on the heels of Trip hitting that Nausicaan over the head with a space wrench after hitting Reptile over the head with a space pipe. So that should have been a fresh memory. Instead, Space Ghost Trip finds Phlox. There's a little fight. By the end, Phlox hits Space Trip with a door, takes him out, floods the tubes, kills everybody with CO2 poisoning, and resuscitates him just in the nick of time. Meanwhile,
literally the end of the episode, except for one last thing, which is
little tiny one,
little tiny thing, which is they're trying to get away. Of course, the space whale's going to eat him back up, and he's like, "Launch torpedoes!" And they shoot two of Enterprise's notoriously shitty torpedoes that can never do anything to anyone. It flies into the open door, and they one-shot the giant space whale ship with it. And it explodes and kills all of the space ghosts. That's it. It's over.
Roll
You
credits.
just genocided the whole race. They're all dead.
Roll credits.
Yeah, roll credits. No reflection, no discussion, no captain's log. Just, all right, we solved the mystery.
No Reed looking surprised. I had no idea it would do that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. We just killed all of those people. Every other time we've used this, it's like, everything's
Bounced
just
off.
shrugged it off, bounced off, if not like bounced back into us. Like, that was a huge mistake. My God, what have we done? We could sit here and hammer harder on the concept of like, maybe it could have helped and there could have been like a really good thing. I think that there's a certain level of species 8472 where like, hey, there's clearly some reasonable ones in there, just because the asshole one got a hold of Reed and made him like rapey, and maybe in this case, instead of it was Kess talking to 8472 Marine, it was Kess talking to I don't know, one of their prisoners or some ne'er-do-well. So wow, that this is a bad one. It's not awful.
It's not awful. I mean, like, if season poo has given me anything, it's perspective on these episodes, right? Like, I found way more to like talk about and dig into on this than probably half of what we watched this season. So
More than half.
yeah, like, this is bad, yet it is elevated over the crap enough that I did not hate the experience. It was fun. It was fun thinking about Phlox gassing his own crew. The adventure game parallel. Hoshi whooping the shit out of him. Like, it had its moments, and T'Pol was actually interesting and showed growth. So that's one thing you can pull out of it. But
it was just disappointing because there could have been a really good or a really interesting episode had everything gone along merrily, and they would have been able to part ways on good terms. I think that's the episode it should have been, instead of fucking genocide. But that's Enterprise for you.
Well, I guarantee you we're watching something more interesting next week, because this is what I wanted to watch this week. So what is it?
Season 2, episode 19, Judgment. Archer is charged by a Klingon tribunal for helping rebels try to escape the Empire. It's funny, I was just thinking about how happy I've been that We haven't had anything to do with Klingons lately, and I'm not happy to see that we're going into a Klingon episode.
It's a good one, though. It's a really good one. It's interesting in that, you know how like a lot of Enterprise has helped to give you a lot more background about Vulcans, and that's been like one of the more interesting things it's chosen to do. This is a great episode because it does that for Klingons and gives you like backstory about like what is the Klingon Empire and what does it look like and what is its bit story arc, right? Like where is it in its evolution? And they go back to this well a few times, of course, throughout the run of the show, and they get to pull out a solid guest track actor, JG Hertzler, to play a Klingon because that's what he's famous for doing, and it pays off. I'm literally looking forward to watching this. This is one I've watched many times. So
J.G. Hertzler was in Sun Kanatsuke, right?
he was as the Hirogen, but he is far more famous for playing General Martok in DS9. So,
well, we'll see.
all right, and we'll see you next week. See ya.